Let's talk about the war that's quietly raging at almost every RPG table. Crunch versus flow. Simulation versus story. Realism versus speed. For decades, we've been told this is the choice. Do you want a game so detailed it tracks the tensile strength of your shoelaces, or one that says, don't worry about it. In fact, don't even think about what or if the GM is rolling. And somehow we bought that. On one side, you've got the Crunch Titans, Pathfinder, Rollmaster, old school GURPS. You want to swing a sword? Cool. I hope you brought a calculator. You'll need to cross-reference feats and modifiers and encumbrance and what direction the wind is blowing. It's technically realism, but really it's a simulation of complexity, not life. You don't feel like Conan the Barbarian, you feel like a forensic accountant with a battle axe. Then there's the other side. Rules light, narrative forward, story first. Games where your character sheet is barely more than a vibe check. Where combat is a flat contest of did you roll high or not, and that's it. It doesn't matter what weapon you choose, what kind of fighter you are, or what clever strategy you try to use. The system barely acknowledges any of it. No tactical depth. No consequences. No mechanical difference between swinging a sword and throwing a chair. Your brilliant swordmaster and the town drunk resolve action in the exact same way, with a single unmodified roll. And when success and failure feel like a coin flip, not the result of your choices, then the stakes feel fake. And here's the twist. Neither approach actually delivers on its promise. Crunchy games that claim realism, but it's not scientific. It's illusion couched in complexity. And story-first games claim immersion, but how immersive is it when nothing you do mechanically matters? Where's the tension in a duel when it's just the GM fudging the dice behind the screen and deciding who he wants to win? You probably felt it. That weird frustration, no matter what system you're using. Either you're buried in numbers that don't feel heroic, or you're skating on narrative ice so thin it barely holds weight. So maybe it's not about crunch or story. Maybe the real problem is that we've been asking the wrong questions altogether. If you've been in this hobby for more than 5 minutes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. How many times have you been told, just fudge the roll? Oh, the dice ruined your dramatic climax? Just ignore them. We've all done it. Every GM has. Because we've all hit that moment where the dice didn't serve the story. They sabotaged it. And here's the crazy part. Some of the biggest names in the TTRPG space, Matt Colville, the Dungeon Dudes, Sly Furish, their most popular content isn't about playing the game. It's about fixing the game. Balancing encounters, designing better stakes, pacing combat, softening bad rolls. All brilliant advice. Don't get me wrong. Love those guys. But none of it solves the real issue because all of it assumes the problem is you, the GM. You have to be clever enough to make a flat, swingy, one-size-fits-all die feel like good storytelling. But what if the dice were the real problem? At Enginotica, we stopped asking how do we work around the D20 and started asking, why the hell are we still using this at all? Or the dice pools, or the D100, or the 2D6? So we built something better. A new core mechanic designed not to just roll dice, but to tell stories. Not another version of the same old D20, D100 dice pools, or even PBTA, but something completely new. It's called D19. And it's not just a clever gimmick. It's a more efficient scientific model to build your games on. It changes the landscape in not one, but a number of key ways, and I'm going to outline 3 of the top differences in this video. Make sure you wait for the final reveal, because the third feature will blow your mind. Here's how it works. Every time you act, you roll 2 10-sided dice, one white, one black. We call them order and chaos. Order is your skill, your intention, your momentum. Chaos is the resistance, the challenge, the entropy of the world pushing back. Roll both. Subtract the lower from the higher. If order wins, your result is positive. If chaos wins, it's negative. If they tie, it's a clinch, a kind of stalemate. That gives you a result when you subtract one from the other of -9 to +9. That's 19 possible outcomes. That's why we call it D19. Now here's the part that matters. Unlike a D20, which gives every result an equal 5% chance, this system creates a bell curve. That means most rolls are going to land around 0, with extreme results being statistically rare. You're no longer at the mercy of some pure randomness. That's how real simulations work. Every serious scientific model, from weather forecasting to ballistics, uses bell curves. Why? Because that's how probability actually behaves in the real world. You don't get absurd outliers every few seconds. You get a spread, a shape, a story. And that changes everything, because now your expert swordsman isn't just one unlucky roll away from pratfalling like a clown. Now skill matters. Build matters. Strategy matters. Luck still plays a role, but it's tamed, it's shaped, it's meaningful. You won't need to fudge rolls. You won't feel like you're fighting your own system just to keep tension alive. The dice are finally doing their job, creating dynamic, believable, earned outcomes. Partial successes, hard bargains, triumphs that feel like triumphs because you beat the odds, not because you rolled a random 20. So yeah, we didn't just tweak the old system, we replaced it. And in doing so, we made a game that finally feels like it's working with you, not against you. That's D19, that's Enginotica. But that's only the beginning, because let's be honest, what good is a balanced die roll if it's still boring? See, most games out there are still running on a patched up engine. Systems that were never built for narrative in the first place. Just statistical tools from wargaming retrofitted with story paint. And every time a new RPG tries to solve the problem, they go right back to the same old toolbox. D20, 2D6, D100 dice pools. That's it. Tiny variations, small tweaks, but no true reimagining. The shapes might change, but the spine stays the same. The games keep trying to fix these systems by stacking on modifiers, metacurrency, rerolls, partial success tables, and it never quite works. Because you can't renovate your way out of bad architecture. They weren't broken. They were wrong from the start. So we stopped patching, and we built something new. D19 pulls double duty. It doesn't just fix the math, it rewires the storytelling engine. Because in most RPGs, a die roll answers one question. Did it work? Yes or no? But in Enginotica, every roll answers at least 2. Did you succeed? And crucially, how well or how badly was the result? This is called force. You get it by subtracting chaos from order. And that number, anywhere from -9 to +9, isn't just a pass-fail. It's the magnitude of the moment. Force +7? You didn't just succeed. That's yes and. You hit the goblin and you knocked him prone. Force -3? You failed. But you notice the dragon favors their right eye. That's yes or no but. And here's where it gets real. Force drives everything. +6 force might mean 6 damage. or a level 6 spell, or 6 NPCs immediately backing your cause. -5, you didn't just miss the jump, you fell and took 5 damage. 1 roll. 1 outcome. No extra charts, no separate damage rolls, no second roll to see what happens next. You roll once, and the story moves on. That's the magic. That's the power. The die is the drama. In Enginotica, 1 roll doesn't just answer, did it work? It tells you exactly how well it worked or how badly it blew up in your face. This is where the D19 system kicks into overdrive. The force result you get from subtracting chaos from order doesn't just resolve the action, it narrates it. It quantifies it. It gives it dramatic shape. Now it's not just yes and no, but new outcomes like yes and you crushed it, and not only did you succeed, something extra went your way. You knocked the ogre back and disarmed him. You cast the spell and it radiates with bonus power. This isn't just success, it's more cinematic. Yes, but you did it, but there's a complication. You breach the firewall, but leave a digital trace. You hit the goblin, but you dropped your shield. No but. You fail, but there's something to work with. You don't land the hit, but you exposed their throat. You trip, but fall into cover. No and. A disaster. Not only did you fail your attempt, but something else bad happened. Now imagine this happening every single roll. No special charts, no post-roll negotiation. The story and the system are fused, and that unlocks a new kind of storytelling because now every roll has flavor, consequence, texture. You don't get a flat yes or no, you get yes and, no but, yes but it hurts, no and it burns. And this isn't optional flavor. It's baked into the core of both mechanical outcomes and narrative cues. GMs no longer have to scramble to make it interesting. The role already kind of is. It's all right there. And for the players, no more empty rolls. You're not just hoping for success, you're riding a curve of tension and drama and risk and surprise. Every roll builds the scene. Every result is a moment you'll remember. The system wants tension. It thrives on it. So as a GM, you don't need to fudge rolls anymore. You're not hiding behind the GM screen trying to protect the narrative from your own rules. You're free. The system has your back. You don't need a GM screen. Just roll in the open if you want. And as a player, you feel like your character, you feel your build, you feel the weight of every decision because every action ripples forward with consequences. You're not rolling to see what the GM lets you do. You're shaping the moment and the game reflects that. Now maybe you're thinking, this all sounds amazing, maybe too amazing. So what's the catch? Or if this is so obvious, why hasn't anyone done it before? Well, bits and pieces have existed. 2d6 has curves. Fate dice kind of does storytelling stuff. Systems that play with partial success, games that try to storify their resolution mechanics. But no one's gone all in. No one's built an entire system that puts the curve, the consequence, and the narrative weight into one clean, elegant roll. That's what Enginotica does. Because we didn't patch an old system, we scrapped it. And we built a new one where fairness, drama, and story aren't competing, they're aligned. That's not a compromise, that's a foundation. And we're only just getting started. If you're a GM tired of fudging dice to keep your story afloat, if you're a player sick of flat mechanics that don't care about the effort you put into your build, if you're a designer, a dreamer, or just someone who loves when a game gets out of its own way, then you owe it to yourself to try the D19. All right, let's talk about difficulty. Because you can have the greatest dice mechanic in the world, and I believe we do, but it doesn't mean squat if your challenge ratings are trash. You know what I'm talking about. Picking this lock, let's call it a DC 17. Based on what? A gut feeling? A half-remembered table? A mood? Traditional RPGs love to pretend difficulty is objective, but it's not. It's vibes in a trench coat. We've all seen it. A rogue fails to jump a gap they could cross in their sleep because the GM rolled spicy that day, or the bard flubs a flute tune that after 12 years at a conservatory. The dice weren't the problem. The problem was the number they were rolling against. So Enginotica fixed it. We built the feasibility framework, a difficulty system rooted in something shocking, actual logic. Here's how it works. When the GM sets a challenge, they don't pull a number from the void. They ask one simple question. What percentage of people in this world could realistically do this? That's it. If the number is half the people here could do that, then you don't have to modify the dice, because that's the coin flip that they roll organically. But if it's 1 in 100 could do this, well, that's an elite tier flex. And you can use the one table that we sometimes need for a while to see that that equals a +9 modifier to your chaos. Because an Enginotica difficulty isn't arbitrary, it reflects the fiction. The numbers scale to the world. You want to forge a cursed alloy while skydiving through a lightning storm on the back of a jet wyvern? Awesome. Now ask how many people in this world could do that. If the answer is 2, then the math reflects that. +8 difficulty. That's not a GM call. That's just feasibility doing its job. And the best part, you only need this one chart, and you'll probably have it memorized in a few sessions anyway. You already know the answer because it's your world. This doesn't just work for tasks. It works for everything. Want to stat a creature in your world? Ask how strong is this troll compared to the average person. If it could outmuscle 99% of the villagers, that's a +9 strength. There's a uniformity across Enginotica that's elegant and beautiful. No spreadsheet required. A psychic librarian who can recite every ancient dialect in her sleep, maybe a +7 savvy. Because percentile-based thinking scales. It works in high fantasy, cyberpunk, ruin worlds, cosmic horror, biotech horror. Enginotica doesn't care what the genre is. It only cares what your world says is normal. And once you know what normal is, you know what's exceptional. And that's where difficulty lives. This makes balancing encounters intuitive, not arcane. You're not measuring challenge by CR or level or some dusty stat block. You're measuring it by context. And that frees you to say, yes. Yes, you can try to hack the mind of a sentient asteroid. Yes, you can attempt to outdrink the god of revelry. Just ask the feasibility question. How many people in this world could pull that off? There's your difficulty. The spiral takes it from there. And because Force already gives you a clean scale from -9 to +9, the roll itself tells the story. You don't need lookup tables. You don't need to fudge anything. The math honors the fiction. For GMs, it means you're no longer the wizard behind the curtain pulling levers. You're part of the story, not the referee holding it together with tape and sad compromise. And for the players, it means trust. They feel the logic. They know that if the world says this should be doable, then the numbers won't cheat them. And if they fail, they know the difficulty was earned, not made up to stop them. That's what fairness actually looks like. This is how you build trust into the bones of your game. No guesswork, no hand waving, no, I guess I'll just call it a 16. Just clear, reasoned, scalable logic tied directly to the world you're playing in. Because if you can say 1 in 10 people could do this, Enginotica will handle the rest. That's not just better math, that's better storytelling, and it's consistent, and it's easier, way easier. You know that feeling when you sit down to play a new RPG, and before the story even starts, the GM drops a stack of homework? Read this chapter, memorize these conditions, pick your spells from this spreadsheet of pre-approved fun. And now, by the time you've finished building the character, you're pretty much already burnt out. Yeah, we've all been there. Enginotica looked at all that and said, we're not going to do this anymore. I've run entire sessions over the last 10 years with so many players that didn't even know the rules. No joke. They joined over Discord or sat at my table and just started playing. They were locked in from the first scene. No prep, no hesitation, just vibes, story, and dice. Why? Because Enginotica doesn't expect you to speak in rulebook. It speaks in story. It speaks in instinct. You don't need to memorize modifiers. You don't need to prescript your abilities. You just describe what your character does, what they want to do, and the game listens. Want to leap off a rooftop and stab a dragon in the eye with a shattered wine bottle? Great. Want to improvise a ritual using blood, sand, and the dying breath of a god? Even better. You just roll your 2 dice, order and chaos, and the system does the rest. No lookup tables, no nested conditionals, just clean, dramatic results that push the story forward. It's not just fast. It's not just easy. It's honest. Because Enginotica lets you GM big, without drowning in detail. You can build anything, any world, any tone, any genre twist or weird mythic structure your heart wants, and the system won't get in your way. It'll back you up. And for the players, there's no learning curve. They don't need a manual. They just show up, play their character, and watch the world respond. That's it. The system disappears into the story. And that's what you want. No math, no grind, no wait, let me look that up. Just your imaginations, your dice, and your willingness to follow where the game takes you. Now, if you think Enginotica stops at scientific bell curves and realistic difficulty, think again. We're only 2/3 through this deep dive, and there's one more paradigm to smash. We've handled fairness, we've tackled difficulty, now for the coup de grace, the final boss. Progression. You kill monsters, you get XP, you hit a level threshold, ding. Now you're better at sword fighting and healing and somehow playing the flute. Every game does it. It's ancient, it's clunky, and it's completely disconnected from how stories actually work. Enginotica takes a look at that and says, no, we can do better. And so we did. Introducing the dyad system. Remember how every roll in Enginotica uses 2 dice, order and chaos? That's how you resolve action, but sometimes those dice land on the same number. That's a dyad. When you roll a dyad, you don't succeed. Instead, you grow. Here's how it works. Whatever you were doing when the dyad landed, that becomes a seal, a permanent skill that reflects what just happened. If you had no experience in it, boom, you get a new seal of, say, climbing +1, or a seal of sword fighting +1, or a seal of arcane improvisation, whatever you were doing. And if you already had that seal, the dyad upgrades it if the number of the dyad is higher than your current seal level. If you're at a +3 on the seal, you'll need a dyad of 2 4s or higher to hit a +4. What does that mean? Early game growth is fast. Late game, you have to earn it. It's organic, it's automatic, and it's exactly how stories work. You don't level up because the GM says it's time. You level up because you kept doing something until you improved at it. There's no XP chart, no feat trees, no skill point spreadsheets, just you, the moment, and the dice. And that's the reveal. That's the part that feels impossible until you see it happen at the table. Enginotica doesn't just streamline mechanics, it makes progression feel real. It's not a reward at the end of the grind. It's a ripple in the story, triggered by your own actions, tracked seamlessly by the same roll that resolved the action. One roll. You don't stop the game to update your character sheet. The game updates it for you as you play. And the more you play, the more your character stops feeling like a build and starts feeling like a biography. Because those seals, that's your history, your scars, your instincts, the proof of every impossible thing you pulled off. This isn't abstract progression. It's narrative memory etched directly into the rules. So if you're a GM tired of bookkeeping XP and hand-delivering levels, you're free. If you're a player who wants to stop metagaming and start actually being your character, welcome home. Because here's the twist no one expects. The most immersive RPG experience isn't more complicated. It's just more connected. Let's be honest. Character progression is broken in most RPGs, and it always has been. In crunchy systems, it's a math slog, skill trees, XP charts, feat prerequisites, class locks. Want to get better at something? Better hope it's on your build path or wait 5 sessions and beg your GM. In rules light systems, it's the opposite problem. Too loose. No rules at all. You level up when it feels right. You improve skills based on GM vibes. Nobody knows how it works. Players guess, and GMs fudge. Enginotica fixes all of that. And it all happens the second you roll. Once. No table, no downtime, no between session homework, one single roll. This is progression as a direct consequence of play. You climbed the cliff, now you might get better at climbing cliffs. You fixed the ship during a storm while yelling at a ghost. You might be better at engineering and negotiation after that trip. It's frictionless, and here's the kicker. It's not just cleaner than crunch. It's more accurate. It uses a scientific bell curve, weighted odds, natural distribution. It behaves like the real world, which grounds all the fantastical things your characters do, which means actions succeed more believably. Critical moments feel earned. Extreme results are rare and thrilling. You get realism without the spreadsheet, drama without the guesswork. So instead of bogging down in complexity or throwing you into ambiguity, Enginotica does something no other system does. It makes the dice your collaborator. The roll doesn't just ask, did you succeed? It asks how well, and if fate aligns. If you hit a dyad, it asks something else. Should this moment change you? Sometimes the answer is yes, and that's how you grow. That's how legends happen organically. You don't plan your progression here. You earn it in motion, in character, in scene. And you'll never need a level chart again. So yeah, crunchy systems bury you in mechanics. Rules light ones leave you hoping your GM says yes. Enginotica, one roll. That's it. Success, stakes, skill growth, all in one elegant, scientific, cinematic mechanic. No clutter, no waiting, no permission required. You act, you roll, you change. That's how it should have always worked. And now it does. So grab the full Enginotica rulebook on DriveThruRPG. Join the Patreon if you want to get in on live games or deep dive design sessions. Like, subscribe to help this community grow. Come hang out on the Discord, and I will see you in the spiral, my friends.